will consist of problems from this sheet and the other sheet, the two review sheets, which are exactly the same. Not every problem will be on the review sheet, on the exam. Every problem on the exam is on the review sheet. But not all of these are on the exam, because the exam is just a regular class period. So here we go, number 1. You are allowed to do this in any order that you wish. Okay? But I would suggest that one good way to start, there are lots of things that have to be done, but a good way to start is just to simplify all this stuff in the middle. So I'm not going to worry about the exponent. I'm just going to simplify all this. So I have 4 over 9, that does not reduce. These 3 are going to come down. So 3 are coming down. There's already 1 down there, so there's going to be 4 of those on the bottom. I've got 5 y's on the top and 1 on the bottom, so that's going to leave me with 4 y's if I cancel. And these guys are coming down. There's already 2 z's there. I'm bringing down 4 more, so that's going to be z to the 6th. Now, all the like terms in there have been combined, so now I'm ready to do the 1/2 power. Now remember, the 1/2 power means square root. 1/2 power means square root. So we have 2 over 3, square root of 4, square root of 9. And then when I have a double exponent, I multiply. So 4 times 1/2, 4 times 1/2, 6 times 1/2. And there is your answer. That is the answer to the question. All right, now we've got one of these big long problems. You remember we had one of these on a test. And we have to simplify it. Everything there is multiplication. It's all times. So let's change everything into sines and cosines. So we have sine over 1. That's already a sine, so I'm not changing it. Tangent is sine over cosine. Cosecant is 1 over sine, but it's squared because the cosecant squared, so it'll be 1 over sine squared. Cotangent is cosine over sine, and secant is 1 over cosine. So we have all of that in a big long line. Okay? Now, what cancels? We can start canceling. Now look, you have a sine times a sine and a sine squared on the bottom. So that sine squared is going to cancel that sine squared. This cosine is going to cancel that cosine. Oh, whoa, wait a minute. You guys, you got to keep an eye on me here. That cotangent was squared, so I got to have squareds in here. That cotangent right there is cosine squared over sine squared. So wait a minute. So that's not going to cancel out that whole cosine. This cosine will cancel one of these, and then that one will cancel that one, and what I have left is 1 over sine squared. So I didn't pay attention. That's a squared, so I had to have a squared and squared. And then I can continue canceling, and I am left with this. Which, if you want to write as cosecant squared, you can. All right, I know it's boring as heck, guys. It's Monday morning. It's raining out. You do not want to be doing this, but almost all of you have to take the exam. So we really need to pay attention because we don't want this to ruin our grade. You can all do it. You can all do well, but you've got to stay tough. Oh, wait. That's a circled one. I told you you didn't have to do the circled ones. So let's skip down to number 2. The circled ones, if they are circled, they are not on your exam. So now we're down to sine 240. Remember, the exam will be in 2 parts, with calculator and without. So everything on this front page is without a calculator. We don't need one, won't have one. So sine 240. Start here always. When you draw your angle, come up and around. Here's 240. I know that's 240 because this is 180 and this is 270. If I come all the way around past 180 down to 240, this angle right here is 60 because 240 minus 180 is 60. Remember your ratios in a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Across from the 60 is root 3. So we have negative and negative because we're left and down here in the 3rd quadrant. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Negative root 3 over 2. Opposite over hypotenuse. Now I know what some of you are thinking, oh my gosh, I have forgotten all that. Well, hopefully you've already started your own review, but if you haven't, that's certainly something you want to review. It will be on your exam, I guarantee it. Cosine pi over 2, same sort of problem, except this is a radian measure. This is a degree measure. Remember, pi is 180. So this is really the cosine of 90. Pi divided by 2, 180 divided by 2. Now, what makes that different than this one is when you draw when you draw 90, it's on the line. So you are not going to be able to make a triangle. This is your angle right here. So I just have a circle. It's not a very good circle, but just have a circle. Now, this point right here, if I let the radius be 1, which as we've discussed over and over, you can let the radius be anything you want, but it's easiest just to make it 1. This is the point 0, 1. So x is 0 and y is 1. Now, you've got to remember that cosine is x over r. The definition of cosine is x over r. So 0 over 1 or 0. So the answer to the problem is my x coordinate over my radius, 0 over 1. And then I've got one more of those, secant 3 pi over 4. I'm going to start that exactly the same way I started the last one. I'm going to change this into a degree measure. So pi is 180. Divided by 4 is 45, times 3 is 135. Now, I've done so many of these, that's kind of automatic for me. If it's not automatic for you, you're going to do it over to the side. You're going to do your work over to the side. So you'll do pi divided by 4, and you'll get that answer. And then you'll take 45 times 3 and get 135. 135 is right here. How do I know? Because it's between 90 and 180. 135 is between 90 and 180. This angle is 180 minus 135, which is 45. So the sides are 1, 1, root 2, and don't forget the negative. Remember, if you're anywhere other than quadrant 1, you're going to have a negative someplace. Here we have it on the x because it's left. Here we had it on the x and the y because it was left and down. Secant is reciprocal of cosine. Yes, you need to know that. Secant is reciprocal of cosine. Cosine is x over r, so it's going to be r over x, or hypotenuse over adjacent. Either way, it's a triangle, so you can think of that. So root 2 over negative 1, or negative root 2. number 3. Now this is an easy one. Does this equation represent growth or decay? Growth. Because that number right there is bigger than 1. So it's just like with limits. If that number's bigger than 1, it just keeps growing. So this is a growth problem. It's 7% growth. How much bigger than 1 am I? I'm 7%, or 0.07 bigger. So that's 7% growth. And the initial value is 20. This number right here is your initial value, always. So in an exponential equation, the initial value is the first number. And then the second number tells you whether you are growth or decay, depending on if it's bigger than 1 or less than 1. The amount that it's bigger than 1 is the growth, and the amount that it's less than 1 is the decay percentage. Got a simple little logarithm equation here, and then a harder one here. Remember, the key to solving a logarithmic equation is to loop-de-loo it. So 5 to the negative second equals x. 5 to the negative second equals x. That means 1 over 5 squared, 1 over 25. Negative exponents, remember, go to the bottom. So that's why 5 to the negative second is 1 over 5 squared. Now, we're going to approach this problem in a similar way, but the problem is there's 2 logarithms over here. You have 2 logarithms. You can't have 2 logarithms. So we got to put these together so there's only 1. Since they're being added, when I put them together, they're going to go together as a multiplication. When logarithms are added, it means these 2 things have been multiplied. So 7x plus 21. If that had been a subtraction, it would mean these 2 things were divided. So this would be x plus 3 over 7 if that had been a minus sign. Once you get those 2 put together into one logarithm now, it's one logarithm over here, you can drop these out and say 7x plus 21 equals 100, and then just solve it. So 7x equals 79, and x equals 79 over 7. Now guys, you cannot drop the logarithms until you have 1 equal to 1. Then you can drop them out. Don't try to drop them out in the original problem. That won't work. You got to put them together first. All right, now we have our first calculator problem, so hopefully y'all have a calculator handy. We're going to go ahead and solve this equation. It should be set, your calculator should be set in degrees. Your whole exam is in degrees, so make sure you're not messing with that. Make sure your calculator is set in degrees. So we're going to add 6 and divide by 8. Just like a regular little equation. Now I'm going to go to my calculator in a minute, and I'm going to type second tangent 8/5. That's how I find an angle. I use my inverse tangent, my second tangent. Well, in this case, it could be sine or cosine, depending on the equation. But before I do that, I need to figure out where my answers can be. Now, in order to do that, you have to remember that sine is associated with y, cosine is associated with x, and tangent is associated with both. So if tangent is a positive number, that means y and x are either both positive or y and x are both negative. The reason that that's important is because when you type on your calculator, second tangent, 8 divided by 5, you are going to get an answer. But you're only going to get one answer. You're going to get that one, 57.99. Then you need to be able to figure out where the other answer is, which will be quadrant 3, because again, y over x has to be positive. So to get quadrant 3, this is also 57.99, you're going to do 180 plus 57.99. And your other answer is 237.99. Those are the answers to that question. You have notes over all of these problems, and if you've lost your notes or thrown them away, they're still in Schoology, along with all of the video notes. So if you don't understand what's going on there and you want to practice some more, you've got plenty of problems to go back and practice. All right, now we've got an exponential. Actually, we have two of them, D and E. E is a calculator problem. This one is not. Hopefully you recognize that 9 and 27 are not random numbers. 9 and 27 are both powers of 3. So 9 is 3 squared, and 27 is 3 cubed. Not every problem is going to be able to be done that way, but when you have a 9 and a 27, it's just too good to be true. It's 3 squared and 3 cubed. Now, these get multiplied, so this is 3 to the 10x plus 2. Remember, when you have a double exponent, you multiply. And likewise over here. This is just like that logarithm problem we had a minute ago. When you have 3 to a power equals 3 to a power, you can just set the powers equal to each other. So drop out the 3's, just like we dropped out the logs when we had log equal log. So 4x equals 7, and it looks like x equals, oh, no. 4x equals negative 11, and x equals negative 11 over 4. So subtract 4x, subtract 2, there it is. That is very different, very easy, compared to the next one, which is a calculator problem, because 5 and 8 do not have a common base. Like 9 and 27 were both powers of 3. You can't do that with 5 and 8. So you're going to take the logarithm of both sides. You're going to pull the exponent out in front. And then you're going to get x by itself, so you're going to divide by 3 log 5. Now, that's a pretty easy process. The issue is going to come when you type that into your calculator. Since there are 2 things that you're dividing by, please make sure they're in parentheses. So if you have your calculator, type along with me, log 8, close parentheses, divided by parentheses 3 log 5. You should get 0.4307 as your answer. The next problem requires a formula, which I will give you the 2 growth formulas. You will have those provided. So this one is compounded continuously. So you remember that your compounded continuously formula looks like that. And again, you don't have to memorize the formula, but you have to recognize that is the one for continuous. So the problem says compounded continuously. That's your clue, you need that formula. How much will I have in my account? If I start with 1, 2, 3, 4 at an interest rate of 0.025, no matter which formula you're doing, your interest rate must be a decimal. So 2.5%, 0.025, and 18 years. You don't have to do this, but I like to take care of that exponent first. You do not have to do that. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, e to the 0.45. I just multiplied those two together. So then I type 1, 2, 3, 4, second, ln, 0.45, enter, and it's 1935.30. $1,935.30. 6. How many degrees is 3 pi over 5? Well, we kind of already talked about this. Pi is the same as 180. So I don't care if you do 3 times 180 and then divide by 5, or if you do 180 divided by 5 and then times 3. Either way you do it, it's going to come out to be 108 degrees. There's some really easy problems on this exam, kids. That's one of them right there. Oh my goodness gracious. Here's another one. X minus 3y equals 2, 4x plus 7y equals 27, and all it says is solve. Solve. So we'll probably substitute or eliminate. I don't know what your individual favorites are, but you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to eliminate. So I'm going to multiply the top one by -4. So -4x plus 12y equals -8. Please pay attention, people. Please, please, please. Not only is it disrespectful not to, but you're going to hurt yourselves if you have to take this exam. So y is 1. I went ahead and multiplied the top row, top equation, by -4 and added. So y worked out nicely to be 1. So I'll come back up here, plug in 1. So it looks like x is 5, and I'll write my answer as an ordered pair. You all know how to do that. Everybody should get that problem right. Okay, remember if they're circled, you skip them. So 8 is skipped, not on your exam. You're not responsible for it. So the next one we have is a triangle, and you are finding the area. The area can be found using Hero's formula. That would be the easiest way to do it. That's the big radical. So we start by finding the perimeter of the triangle. So we're just going to add all these up. Let's see, 24, 34. So the semi-perimeter is 17. We take half the perimeter. Half the perimeter. Clara? I know you don't have to take the exam, but I expect you to be on screen, okay? Or I'll have to mark you absent. Then you have to deal with that. JP, same with you. All right, so semi-perimeter is 17. So then I'll take 17 minus each side. So 17 minus 11, 17 minus 10, 17 minus 13. Now this is obviously a calculator problem, so you just type all that in. 17 times 6 times 7 times 4, square root the whole shebang, and your area is 53.44. If you spend time studying, that is another very simple problem. It's not even as easy as the next one, though. The next one is another area problem, but this time you have this information. Area is 1/2 side times sine of included angle. When you have that set up, two sides and the angle in between, that's perfect for the area. 1/2 side times sine of the included angle. There's no work to do. I mean, that's it right there. You just type it in. 0.5 times 17 times 14 times sine 37 equals 71.62. Again, I get that there's some stuff you have to remember on this exam. I get that some of them are going to be a little more complicated, but these easy ones, if you just study, practice, you can get a lot of these. Here's another one you can get. I want to find side N. I want to find that guy right there. Oops, this wasn't in there. I filled that in. So this is what you were given right here. Now, you know that if you have two angles of a triangle, you can find the third one by just subtracting from 180. So that's how I got 68. Now I'm going to use my law of sines. See this pair right here? That's a law of sines. So sine 49 over 17 equals sine 68 over n. Anytime you have this pair, look where I'm pointing, anytime you have that pair, you're going to be able to set up your law of sines. So we'll cross multiply. And divide. About the only way you can mess this up is if you forget to close the parentheses after your 68. 17 sine 68, close parentheses, divided by sine 49. And n is 20.89. Another one, this one's a little more complicated, but it uses the same thing as over here. See this pair right here? That's a law of sines problem. So sine 53 over 17 equals sine L over 15. Sine 53 over 17 equals sine L over 15. Now, this problem doesn't necessarily say find L, but it says how many triangles are possible, and that depends on whether I have an angle L or not. So let's cross multiply. And remember, sine L is your variable. You cannot separate the sine and the L. We did this a little bit ago. If you want to find angle L, you have to second sign this fraction. So press second sine, and then 15 sine 53, close parentheses, divided by 17. And I got 44.80. Now, we're not trying to figure out what angle L is. We're just trying to figure out if there's a triangle possible, and there is. Remember, these are the ones that sometimes when you type them in, you get an error. And when you get an error, that means there's no triangles, 0 triangles. We know we've got at least one. If there's another one, that other angle L would have to be 180 minus this, so 135.20. So remember, once you've typed in and you do second sine that, it's either going to say error or it's going to say answer, and here's the answer. Then you check the other answer, which is always 180 minus the first one. So 180 minus the first one is 135. Can I have a triangle with a 53 and a 135? No, that's more than 180. So how many triangles are possible? Just one. The one with the 44. That's the only one possible. All right, one more triangle problem it looks like. And we are to find H. Remember, it's not area. It's not area. You could find area here, but that's not the question. We're finding H, which means it's either going to be law of sines or law of cosines. Just like it was over here, we did the law of sines. The one before that, we did the law of sines. Now we need to decide, is this going to be another law of sines or is this going to be a cosine? Well, I hope you realize, unlike this problem where we had a match set, we do not have a match set in this problem. So this is going to be the law of cosines. So on one side, we have h squared. On the other side, we have cosine 42. And then in the middle, we have 17 squared plus 18 squared minus 2 times 17 times 18 times cosine 42. If you have forgotten how the law of cosines works, go back to that section, I think it's 5-6 in your notes, and review some. The good news is, if you can remember this, if you can get this far, it's just typing it in. There's nothing else to do. You can just type it in. Remember, the problem on the exam is going to look just like the problems on the review sheets. So practice typing it in. Tricky thing here, remember that's h squared. So once you get all that typed in and hit equals, you have to square root it. So h is 12.58. You have to remember to square root, because in the law of cosines, this is h squared. All right, now we got some easy ones. We got some matrix problems, which hopefully you remember. It's been pretty recent. And looks like we have 4 matrix questions. I would imagine that your exam will only have 1 or 2, but you don't know which 1 or 2, so let's practice all 3. First one says, let's find a determinant. So this is 13A, find the determinant of matrix A. So I hope you remember, you copy down the first 2 columns. So 1, -1, 0, 2, 1, 3. Now I multiply these, 0. These, another 0, and these a negative 9. And I total all that up, and it's negative 9. Now go the other way. 0, 12, 0. Then remember that you subtract these. So negative 9 minus 12. Negative 9 minus 12. The value of the determinant is negative 21. Super simple process. Review it to remember, so you remember which order to go in. You do these minus these. Downs minus ups. All right, now we have B minus 2C. So I'm going to, well, no, let's go ahead and write it down. Minus 2C. So there's matrix B, hopefully copied correctly, minus 2 times, there's C. All right, so let's go ahead, and you need to decide what you're going to do here, because this is super simple, but don't get bogged down by all the negatives. I'm going to go ahead and leave that a minus, and I'm going to take 2 times all of this. If you want to do negative 2 times all that and make that a plus, that's up to you. It's fine. It'll work. Don't do both. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to distribute the 2. So I have negative 4, 2, negative 14, 6. But now I'm going to subtract those. So 5 minus negative 4, 6 minus 2, 0 minus negative 14, negative 1 minus 6. There is the answer to the question. All right, the next one we're going to multiply. Some of you mastered this, some of you still struggled a little bit, so let's go through it. We're going to multiply 5, 6, we're going to multiply that matrix times C, which is this matrix. Now remember, in order to multiply, these have to match, and they do. These tell me how big my answer is. So my answer is going to be another 2 by 2. When I multiply 2 2 by 2s, I'm going to end up with another 2 by 2. Now, first row, first column is going to give me that number right there. So 5, 6, negative 2, negative 7 is going to give me that number right there. Negative 10 plus negative 42. This is a negative 52. First row, first column. First row, second column. So first row, second column. So 5, 6, 1, 3. That number is going to be a 23. 5 plus 18. Now, we'll move down here. We're going to fill that spot. So that second row, first column, that's right here. Second row, first column. So 0 plus 7, this guy's a 7. And second row, second column. So 0, negative 1, and 1, 3. That's a negative 3. And there's your product. That's what you get when you multiply them together. And the last one is find the inverse of B. Remember, that's a 2-step process. Try to pay attention, folks. We don't have time today for me to ask questions and sit in silence. I really, really, really need you all paying attention while we roll through this. First, we're going to find the determinant. So the determinant is 5 times -1 minus 0 times 6. Multiply these, and subtract them. That's the determinant. So that's -5. Then I make a new matrix by switching these two numbers and changing the signs of these. So these two flip-flop, these two I change their signs, 0, 0, so it doesn't change, but that becomes a -6. Then I divide each one of these by the -5 that I found as the determinant, and I simplify. So 1/5, 6/5, 0, -1. That is your inverse. 2 steps. Find the determinant, make a new matrix, and then divide. And that will give you your inverse. All that's in chapter 7. So go back to your chapter 7 notes if you need additional practice or reinforcement. This next one, it was too confusing for me to mark some of it out, so I didn't. But you are responsible only for amplitude and period on this one, so you're only going to be expected to find the amplitude and period. So the equation may be some big, hairy, ugly thing, but you are only responsible for these two. Amplitude is this number right here, and period is 360 divided by that number right there. So it's always 360. The normal period of a sine and cosine is 360 degrees. And we're going to divide that by a half. So that is 360 times 2, which is 720. If you prefer to do that in radians, it's 2 pi divided by a half. So that would be 4 pi. Either of these is fine. Your period is always 2 pi or 360, whichever way you're doing it, divided by this number right here. This number is your amplitude, the absolute value of it, positive. Amplitude is positive, and period is 2 pi or 360 divided by that number. That's all you have to do. You don't have to sketch it. Back when we did these, you sketched, but we're not sketching on the exam. You're just listing the amplitude and the period. That's another one that if you miss it, it's because you didn't study. That's it. It's easy. Just study. All right, 15. This whole page is calculator. You're going to order a new Buick. You got 8 exterior colors, 5 interior colors, and 4 types of tires. How many cars are possible? You're going to choose an outside color, an inside color, and a tire. That's 8 times 5 times 4. So there are 160 different cars that you could pick. That is exactly like the jumper problem, the jumper and shirt problem. Next, we have a conditional probability question. Remember, well, it doesn't matter how you do it, but the easiest way is probably a tree diagram. And when you build your tree diagram, whatever the question is asking is the bottom row. So what is the probability you will get your steps? So this is going to be steps, not steps, steps, and not steps. Okay? Then this level is going to be the other thing, which is rain and no rain. Always, the question is the bottom of the diagram, the bottom rung here. All right, the probability of it raining is 12%, so not raining is 88. Remember, they add up to 1. If it rains, the probability of your getting in your steps is 0.38, so this is going to be 0.62. If it doesn't rain, your probability is 0.87, so this is 0.13. What is the probability that you will get in your required steps? So we want this one and this one. So we're going to multiply the branch. So 0.12 times 0.38 is 0.0456. And we're going to multiply this branch. Some of you multiply wacky. I don't know you. You start up here at the top. You got to get here, so it's 0.88, and then here, so it's 0.87. So 0.88 times 0.87 is 0.7656. And then, since we can get our steps this way or this way, we add them. And the answer is 0.8112. That's the final answer to the question. Now we have our card problem. A 5-card hand, what is the probability? You know immediately the denominator is 52C5. Anybody that can't get that denominator hasn't paid any attention. A card problem with a 5-card hand, 52C5. Half credit right there. Now what's the numerator? No aces. So we don't want to get any aces. Well, there are 4 aces in the deck. If I take those out, then there are 48 cards for me to pick from. So 48 C5, those are the non-aces, divided by 52 C5, which are the total cards, and that is 0.6588. Obviously, I need a calculator for that. How many ways can I select a committee of 4 from my class of 10? So there are 10 kids, and I'm picking 4. Is it a 10P4 or a 10C4? That's your question. Whenever you're picking 4 from 10 or 5 from 52, it's either a P or a C. Since this is a committee, it's going to be a C, because the order I am picking them doesn't matter for a committee. If I were picking a president and a vice president, then it would matter, but I'm picking a committee. Now, the next one, now I'm choosing a desk sprayer and a paper towel distributor. So now I've got 21 kids and I'm choosing 2. That's a P, because I am picking them for different jobs. So problem 18 and 19 are the same, except in one order matters and in one order doesn't. Different jobs means order matters. And finally, the last one on this page, we want to find the 4th term. We just did this not very long ago. So the 4th term will have a number